James Harden has finally spoken on the situation that has clouded Sixers training camp since the second that he arrived. I'm here to break down his comments in this video and give you my takeaways on what they mean. Going a little bit mobile here, a little bit different than my usual setup, so bear with me with the mics and everything else, but I wanted to make sure that I got this out and got this information out here. But before I dive fully into it, I do want to make sure that you guys are hitting subscribe to the channel. As of now, 85.2% of you guys watching this video have not subscribed right here on Sixers Digest. We got plenty of big plans for the big season, and we're beginning to get some intel on what the James Harden situation might exactly be. So without further ado, let's dive right into things today. I'm going to begin by kicking things off with a couple videos from James Harden, who spoke for the first time to the press since arriving in Philadelphia and shed some clarity on his exact outlook. Let's begin with this video by Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer right here.
Just to the fans, man, it's just appreciate the support and love, and you know, I mean, it's definitely a difficult time, but for me, it's just trusting, people that you've known over decades. And, when I got traded here, my whole thing was I wanted to retire at Sixer. You know what I mean? I wanted to be here and retire at Sixer. And the front office didn't have that in their future plans. You know what I mean? So, it's literally out of my control. It's something that I didn't want to happen, and it's just to be in this position. But, I got to make a decision for, my family. I understand this is a business, you know what I mean? So it's just as simple as that, you know what I mean? I come here today and work my butt off and do the things necessary as a professional as I would do and as I've been doing for 15 years.
So very clear that James Harden's feelings are hurt there. It is good to kind of hear it from the horse's mouth and get his direct comparison and just feelings on the situation. That so much of this have been he said, she said, leaks through the media, that it's nice to see James Harden front and center saying how he feels. This quote is just heartbreaking here. The quote, "When I got traded here, my whole thing is I wanted to retire as Sixer. I wanted to be here and retire as Sixer, and the front office didn't have that in their future plans." Now, I wanted to dive through exactly what the James Harden situation is and how we got here specifically. But first, I want to show you this other video, and my fault. The first one was from Kyle Neubeck of PHLY Sports. This one is from Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer.
You had a relationship for 10 years. Do you think this is something that can be repaired? I mean, could you look at it? Can't? And why? Why is it that? Why do you think it can't be repaired?
And this is not even about this situation. This is life. When you lose trust in someone, you know what I mean? It's like a marriage. You lose trust in someone, it's like hot. You know what I mean? So, it's pretty simple.
To get what you want, which is move on from here at this point, is your play going to determine how and who gets involved?
What do you mean?
Like playing games to be able to move.
I mean, like I said, I can control what I control. I'll take it one day at a time and focus on, every day is a new day. So, but my plan is to play basketball, yes, for sure.
So laying it out once again, it's very clear that the issue is with Daryl Morey, that he believes the relationship is beyond repair. He made an interesting comparison by saying the marriage comment there. I did think that was interesting, and it is sad that we are at this point. I mean, from a human being level, James Harden and Daryl Morey have been through quite a bit. That these are guys who I truly believe legacies are more tied than any player and any general manager ever. Think back to Daryl Morey first making the big risk by trading for James Harden during their time in Houston. At this point, Harden's still a six-man on the Oklahoma City Thunder, seeming like he's cut from a Manu Ginobili type role in what they were playing with him. Then he brings him to Houston. He becomes the epicenter of this franchise, and to both Daryl Morey and James Harden himself's credit, he grew into the superstar it was hoped to be, became the MVP of the league, became this all-time great player that he still currently is. But it is sad that after a decade together, we're seeing things shatter. I mean, Harden laid it out front and center, saying, James Harden tells reporters today that the relationship with Daryl Morey can't be repaired. Quote, "This is in life. When you lose trust in someone, it's like a marriage. I wanted to retire as Sixer, and the front office didn't have that in their future plans." So how did we get here? Why was he not in the future plans? Let's start by the trade to bring James Harden to Philadelphia. Obviously, traded away Ben Simmons to the Brooklyn Nets, kind of exchanged our problem for your problem as James Harden was forcing his way out of Brooklyn once again. That was the right move, and even those who want to kick rocks and complain about it to this point in time, you cannot dispute that James Harden at least gave the Sixers a better chance at a championship than Ben Simmons would have for the past 2 years. Now, are we in a better place because we are seeing the end of James Harden as he's on the tail end of his career? He is on the downfall on the second half, while Ben Simmons surely is not aging well either. We haven't seen him back to 100% since he wore a Sixers jersey. In fact, the version of him in Brooklyn was far worse than anything. But for James Harden specifically, that he was brought to Philadelphia by Daryl Morey once again, with the hopes that this could finally be the piece of the championship. It felt like James Harden was at the stage in his career where he was ready to be a second fiddle, to let Joel Embiid lead the charge and be the epicenter of the franchise, while James Harden elevated him to the MVP that he became. There is no doubt that James Harden made Joel Embiid's life easier. There were buckets that he was able to get that he simply did not have access to in years past. The pick and roll, they truly were the most dynamic pick and roll partners across the entire NBA. It worked from a basketball perspective. Now, when we talk finances, let's look back to last offseason, that James Harden had this $47 million player option. He opted out, allowed the money to go into P.J. Tucker, to Daniel House, to Montrezl Harrell, and essentially his friends to come to Philadelphia. From James Harden's public point of view is that he said he wanted the Sixers to fill out the roster with championship caliber players, and he would basically take what was left. He had that one-year agreement signed, and then the one-year player option on the end of it. So we get to this offseason. The belief, I understand, is James Harden wanted to kind of make up for what he passed up on in the past offseason. Now, the NBA has investigated this twice now, said there was no backhand handshake deals, and that is quite clear because the Sixers did not offer him anything. And I've heard from several sources within the Sixers organization that they did not plan on offering James Harden a contract at all. That the goal from the Sixers' point of view was to allow this period to pass. James Harden would see his market value, which is less than the $35 million on his player option at this point in time. If you ask me to honestly guess what James Harden would get on the open market, it's really tough to say. Based on this offseason specifically, this free agency, when you look around at these other teams, there really was not much of a market for him. That even the Houston Rockets, which is the franchise that he obviously had his upcoming with, and then he had pointed to as a potential destination throughout the course of the season, dating back to Christmas is when those leagues first started, they went and handed money to Fred VanVleet instead of James Harden. That felt like a check that was made out to James Harden that was cashed by Fred VanVleet. That was a slap in the face moment. So I think from Daryl Morey and from the Sixers' perspective, their game plan was to lean on this concept that they would not negotiate with James Harden until they're past the grace period because they got punished for tampering last year. Now, for starters, this does not apply to the James Harden situation because he was under contract with the Sixers. He was a Sixers player. This is not the same as last offseason when you're going out and signing P.J. Tucker, who played for the Miami Heat the season before, and you're tampering to bring him to Philadelphia. It is different when it's your own players, and this crux that the Sixers continue to lean on is simply not there. Now, but James Harden is not blameless in this situation. In fact, using these leaks since Christmas to hype up the market for Houston and all these other teams was a huge part of this issue. I think James Harden created this issue, and the Sixers have handled it in just about the poorest way possible. That from a business perspective, it makes sense from Daryl Morey. That his goal was to allow this period of time to pass by, for James Harden to not accept that player option. That $35 million would then be taken off the books, that he would not be under contract with the Sixers, and then the Sixers could go out and get him at a long-term contract, one that he felt safe with, at a cheaper value than that. So say that he did hit the open market. Say his best offer was maybe a 3-year, $60 million deal on a mysterious team. That this is less about how good James Harden is and more about how many teams legitimately had cap space. This is why James Harden made the decision to opt into the contract and try and get traded to the Clippers. So the Clippers, for example, a team that seems to at least have some level of interest in James Harden, the most that they could offer him from a financial standpoint was a veteran's minimum. Around $2 million, a little more than that. That's what Russell Westbrook accepted to return to the Clippers. That is not what James Harden wanted to be paid, obviously. By taking this $35 million player option, he kind of caught the Sixers off guard because they were hoping that would not be the case. This locked him in, and then he requested a trade. It seems like James Harden sniffed out what the Sixers were trying to do. The root of this issue, James Harden wanted to get paid, and he didn't. That is why he's frustrated. As far as the other implications in handling, and who's wrong in the situation, I keep circling back to it really depends on what the conversations were between James Harden and Daryl Morey. Those are things that were purely between those two that we will never know the answers to. James Harden has been very clear in calling him a liar. We've all seen this video at this point, one of the crazier things to happen. But we still have not had exactly answered why is he a liar. Was it for promises that were not delivered on when it comes to a contract? Was it for other factors? What exactly is he a liar for is really what I would love to put my finger on and figure out. But I do think that's how things played out. That the Sixers wanted this period of time to pass and then get him at a cheaper value. James Harden, from a human being standpoint, is not happy with that. That he believes he came here to be the solution for the Sixers, the long-term key part of the franchise, and wanted that to be the case. So he had his feelings hurt. Now, where I have an issue with this is from the Daryl Morey perspective is how can you know a guy this well, have had such a strong relationship with him for a decade, and not realize that this is going to make him upset? That James Harden is notoriously a guy who acts on emotion. We've seen him done this through several different locations in his career, that he does act out when these situations are. You have to know that about your guy because they are. That is his guy. This is the same Daryl Morey that took a full page out and said, James Harden changed my life when he left Houston. That's an amazing thing. They have that tight relationship, but it's very clearly deteriorated and likely forever just hurt because of these situations. So who do you place the blame on? It is tough. For starters, I don't know how this gets better, that this is looking like more of a mess. I think Daryl Morey is still dug in on the heels of the business side of things and not the human being side of things. That has been one of his biggest downfalls as a general manager. That in a vacuum, Daryl Morey is absolutely right, that it is not the right value to trade James Harden right now. You're not going to get the one-for-one value that the level of talent he is should command. But life does not exist in a vacuum. That all these other factors, him causing a stir in the locker room, him being a distraction to the team, that's a part of this picture. And if the plan is this cap space plan to just clear the books, reset, and figure things out next offseason, then just do that. Just do that. Just get players with one-year deal, get James Harden out of here, and at least start to build something. Now, maybe there is a world where, from a human being standpoint, that they can iron things out, that Daryl Morey can shoot James Harden straight in a way that he hasn't seemed to have done this offseason, and James Harden can shoot Daryl Morey straight right back. They can patch things up. These are two guys who have a decade of relationship together, that there's at least something to lean on there. That is likely Daryl Morey's best case scenario, but it really depends on how much damage has been done between their relationship. Once again, I circle back to a lot of this is going to have to go down between James Harden and Daryl Morey one-on-one. Their marriage is very clearly headed for divorce. That is James Harden's desire in all of this. But does that make sense for everyone? Because James Harden still has his eyes on his pockets. That the next summer, now that he has his $35 million player option, he will be a free agent regardless. So he needs to put himself in a position to capitalize on that opportunity and get the most money possible at this point in his career. Is the best route for that causing a stir, making a scene, and being an issue in camp? It is not. So Daryl Morey does have that to lean on. But I really have no clue where things go from here. James Harden's made it clear that he plans on playing basketball. He's also made it quite clear that the situation, there is no repairing, and he wants to play elsewhere. I don't know where things shake out from here, but I do think we're only getting started on this. My read on those quotes in those specific videos is I think James Harden is willing to do whatever needs to be done to get him to the destination that he needs to be. I'm unfortunately concerned Daryl Morey is not ready to agree with that sentiment and is ready to push the limits on this thing. I believe the circus is coming down in Philadelphia, and we are just getting started with this process. We will see where things go from here. I will be with you guys every step of the way, breaking things down. Thank you guys for watching this video today. Once again, make sure to hit that like button, drop a subscribe to the channel, drop me a comment, your thoughts on the situation as a whole, and I'll be back with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.